Hello, I am Lane Stacy, and today I will be explaining the UN, its history, and its properties, such as its strengths and weaknesses. To begin, the UN is a very big organization that consists of 193 member states. Since it would take too long to explain and list every one of the members, I will just explain the major members. The five major members are called the Permanent Five and have a lot of power, as their title may suggest. The Permanent Five have the ability to veto decisions made by the UN, even if the opposing party has a majority vote. The Permanent Five consist of China, France, United States, United Kingdom, and Russia, but Russia's position in the Permanent Five is now being questioned due to their invasion of Ukraine and not listening to the UN. They are considering expulsion or suspension of Russia's position, but as of right now, they still have a position in the Five. During World War II, the war ravaged many countries, which left everyone vulnerable. As a result of this, everyone wanted to resolve conflicts and prevent another catastrophic war from happening, so they created the UN. While it was originally created to maintain peace, it is now used to fulfill other purposes, such as their agenda for sustainable development. As mentioned in the last slide, the UN now fulfills many other purposes and goals. One of the goals of the UN is their Sustainable Development Goal. The Sustainable Development Agenda is a plan to fix many issues and focus on long term goals to develop nations in a safe way so that future generations can live on the earth. One of their goals is to maintain world peace and stop conflict between countries, which the UN is currently working on with Russia ever since they have invaded Ukraine. Another one of their focuses are poverty and world hunger. They are aiming to get rid of these two problems in society, which are prevalent especially in Africa. Their efforts can be seen through the buildings of wells in Africa, which has helped in efforts to end world hunger and poverty. While Canada is not part of the Permanent Five, they have played a major role in making UN what it is today. If you don't believe me, you'd be gravely mistaken, as they were actually one of the founding members of the UN, so without them, it is possible it would not exist today. Additionally, Canada has served in many peacekeeping efforts around the world. To be exact, they served in 50 operations, but one of the most commonly known operations were their efforts against Afghanistan in 2001. After a terrorist group in Afghanistan had hijacked a plane and crashed into the Twin Towers, the UN had deployed Canadian soldiers to destroy the terrorists with the goal of spreading democracy to Afghanistan and end terrorism to stop any attack like this. To add to the point that Canada is still prevalent in the UN, they were ranked as one of the top 10 members that aren't considered the Permanent Five. The UN has a number of strengths that make it so well known. Among their strengths, one that stands out is their efficiency in saving money during conflicts. An example of this is the Haiti peacekeeping operation, in which they spent $428 million. It was estimated that if the US did it alone, they would have likely spent double the amount of money, which would be very bad financially. Another strength that pertains to the UN is their ability to maintain international peace, but this is starting to be questioned by many, especially considering the Russian Ukrainian invasion. Back to their ability to keep peace, they have once stopped World War III through their strong diplomatic capabilities. During this time, the tension between the USSR and the US was very intense, and they both wanted to stop before it was too late, so they established an agreement which was to ban nuclear warfare, which helped to strengthen the relation and stop World War III. Now, to the weaknesses. A big weakness they have is that members of the UN, primarily the Permanent Five, can abuse power. An example of this is China and Russia. During 2017, a vote was made so people who would produce or utilize chemical weapons would face consequences for that. But China and Russia had used their ability to veto, thus getting rid of what the UN wanted to put into effect. This action was described as a shameful vote by many news outlets and people. Being in the UN has many benefits to it. One benefit of joining the UN is that it makes global trade easier by speeding up the flow of goods by getting rid of international barriers, which supports economic growth of its members. As a result of this, it creates globalized economies, which is good as they interact more with other countries and have versatile markets. In addition to this, members of the UN are safer as they are less of a target for terrorists and enemies, since by messing with a member of the UN, you are messing with all of the members. Despite this, there are drawbacks to joining the UN. One of the drawbacks are that making decisions are harder in the UN, as it is easy to get vetoed by another member if they do not agree with you, and vetoing happens quite frequently. Additionally, decisions can spark controversies between countries, especially if someone vetoes it and someone else persists to try to pass a vote. This might lead you to ask the question, is the UN worth joining? Well, yes. Here's why. As a member of the UN, you get many trade opportunities that are set up by the World Trade Organization, or WTO for short. As stated before, doing this will allow you to globalize and get rid of trade barriers, which will benefit you financially. Additionally, you will become part of the UN's Sustainable Development Agenda, which assures that dictatorships are less likely to happen. It also assures that poverty will become less of a problem in your country. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. This was an informative presentation on the profile of the UN.